Hey, what's going on, guys? It's FPL Yusuf and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going over my transfer targets. We're going to take a look at how my team got on in game week 5, my current thoughts about my squad going into game week 6, but also some transfers that I'm looking to make ahead of next week's deadline. And spoiler alert, I have already confirmed one of them. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for being here today on my YouTube channel for another video. Before we get into this one, if you wouldn't mind dropping a thumbs up and subscribing down below, it'd be greatly appreciated. Okay, so game week 5, how did we get on? So as you guys can see on screen, we finished all on 60 points, just above the average. A little bit of an underwhelming game week, I would say. You know, captaincy, we got a return with Mo Salah, which continues, you know, a return every week, but it wasn't the greatest. Didn't really get too many players scoring big points for me this week. You know, Haaland obviously got his goal against Arsenal. Trent obviously come back with the double-digit haul. Raya, 4 points, where despite conceding 2 goals, you know, we'll take that. The Brighton boys on Sunday obviously getting me over the line and just getting me above the average and into the 60s, or on the 60s, should I say. And that takes us just with a red arrow. It's a small red arrow, though, in the grand scheme of things. We're just down to about 470,000 now, somewhere around that mark. So not the worst, despite how the game week went, even though we got above the average. Small red arrow, but nothing too crazy on that front. So yeah, all in all, we're still on track to be sort of pushing towards, you know, the top end of the overall ranking. You know, we're going to be aiming to move towards 100k by the time we get to around game week 10. So fingers crossed we can still carry on with that. That's kind of roughly where I'd like to be. You know, over the next few weeks, we'll start to see, you know, ranks start to settle down. People will start pulling away. So, you know, the first sort of 5-6 game weeks of the season, everyone's quite close together in rank. But obviously, as time goes on, naturally that gap will get harder and harder to sort of start climbing. So yeah, by the time we get to game week 10, the idea is to be sort of around that 150 to 100k mark, and then hopefully we can just progress on from then. But overall, not the best week, not the worst week, just something in between. Let's get into my game week 6 transfer targets. Okay, so it's like I said, I have confirmed one transfer. You know, I mentioned it in my intro. As you guys can see on screen, I have made the transfer of Diogo Jota out and Brian Mbeumo in. Now, I made this on Sunday night because I looked at the price changes and I saw that Mbeumo was definitely going up, and there was also a chance that Jota was going to go down. If it was just one of them, then maybe I would have left it a little bit longer, because obviously there are EFL Cup games this week. But because it was going to be looking like a 0.2 price swing, I thought, let me just make that change now. So I have made one transfer already, which is, like I said, it's Brian Mbeumo's come in for Diogo Jota. Jota was a very unfortunate one because on the wild card, I was sort of dithering between Diaz or Jota. I made the wrong choice on this one. Diaz was definitely the better pick to partner up with Salah. But, you know, things happen and we move on. Jota was never going to be a mainstay in the team forever anyway. He was always going to be around this sort of period where you'd want to switch him out or move him on to someone else. He doesn't guarantee himself 90 minutes. Now that Darwin scored in the game that he didn't play, I also do worry about his starting position as well. So yeah, for me, it was just one transfer that I had to make. One, because I just think Mbeumo's got the higher upside over the next few weeks, but also two, because the price changes were going to lock me out of a few other things that I wanted to do hopefully this week. Now I only have one free transfer left in the bank, and I am looking to use that free transfer this week, potentially even taking a -4. So one thing that I really want to do, and looking at my squad in particular, is Rico Lewis. I think is going to start to become a bit of an issue. You know, we've seen that, you know, he's been out of the team now for, I think this is the 2nd week now. Kyle Walker started at right back, Gavardio at left back. So on the wild card, we knew he was always going to be a risk bringing him in, because there was always the chance that once Kyle Walker got back up to fitness that he was going to come in. Ironically, I actually don't think Kyle Walker played that well against Arsenal. He had a lot of the ball, and I think maybe with the amount of possession he had, Rico Lewis probably would have been better suited for that style of game. But I get why they played him. You know, Kyle Walker's probably more defensively sound than Lewis is. But for me, that is probably my number one transfer out at the moment, is Rico Lewis. I am looking to bring an Arsenal defender in. I think long term, and by I say long term, I mean by game week 7, I want to have triple Arsenal defense, which is why I'm genuinely considering taking, you know, a -4 to make this happen. So currently at the time of recording, I have 0.7 in the bank. Now, I could theoretically move Trent down to Gabriel and then move Lewis up to Saliba. I have the money to do that. My only problem is that come game week 9, Liverpool and Arsenal play each other. So that would mean I'd have Salah and the 3 Arsenal defenders. And I don't know. I mean, the thing is, Arsenal can get a clean sheet against anybody. You know, they can defend well against anyone. You know, we saw them do that at City on Sunday, where, you know, they had 10 men and they were just defending so well. They were giving City no chances. City were having a lot of possession, but with the centre backs, a lot of shots from distance, but they couldn't really work it into the box. Now, could Arsenal do that against Liverpool? Yes, they could. But Mo Salah score against Arsenal? Yes, he could. So it is a bit of a tricky one. I think the next few fixtures for Arsenal are kind of, I don't want to say locks, but they're very high percentage chances that Arsenal are going to keep a clean sheet. And I think the one thing that I've kind of accepted about Arsenal is I would rather be invested in their defence than their attack. Now, over the next three, Southampton, Leicester, and Bournemouth, there should be goals in there for Arsenal. But I can't guarantee that Kai Havertz is going to play up front, which is a problem for me because, if Trossard's there, I know he got suspended against Man City, but he will serve that suspension in the League Cup, so he will be eligible to play on the weekend. Jesus is back fit now, Sterling's there, Martinelli's there. There's a lot of options right there, and I don't know, with Odegaard out, is Havertz just going to drop into that midfield because we've got so many attacking options up front? It's a possibility, and I think for me, I spoke about this in my wildcard draft where I talked about the three Arsenal defence. I think there are other players who will be able to cover certain Arsenal attackers. Salah, Palmer can cover Saka, Son maybe as well. With Kai Havertz, you've got like Dominic Solanke. I know Mateta got pulled off at half time, but there are players that can cover them. In terms of the defensive side of things, I think David Raya is just by far the best goalkeeper in the game. Not only is he keeping clean sheets, but he's putting up saves as well. And then Gabriel and Saliba, again, Arsenal, I think by the end of the season will have the most clean sheets, but also them two are such a threat from corners, especially Gabriel in particular. There's always a chance that they're going to come back with a double-digit haul. So for me, I think I want to try and transition into a triple Arsenal defense. Now, the big question is, obviously this week, like I said on screen, do I just take the one transfer, move Rico Lewis out to someone else who isn't an Arsenal defender because I haven't got enough money to make it there? Or do I take a -4 by dropping Trent down to bring in Saliba and Gabriel? It's a tough one. I don't know. I think I'm going to wait until we get closer to the deadline. I'm going to keep an eye on price changes as well, of course. But it depends on how I feel about A, price changes, but B, also that Liverpool game in game week 9. But the main one is looking to try and get to Luis Diaz. Now, again, this is the same problem as taking Trent out for an Arsenal defender, is that obviously Arsenal are going to play Liverpool in game week 9. So what I don't want is to have like a double Arsenal defence, triple Arsenal defence, and then two Liverpool midfielders, because that's just not going to be a problem in general. So yeah, there's food for thought around this one. I'm not sure about Luis Diaz. I mean, he started the season very well, and no one can deny the numbers he's putting up. He's been Liverpool's most prolific attacker. Stats-wise, he's putting up the best numbers from the Liverpool attack, better than Mo Salah. He's only been past 70 minutes once, and that was on the opening day where he played the full 90. He seems to keep getting these early subs. Now, granted, he keeps scoring the goals before he gets subbed, but I do ask myself the question, is that going to stop at some point in the future? It's hard to say. So I think for me personally, I would like to get to Luis Diaz, and if I was on a wild card, maybe I would bring him in. But I think for the time being, maybe there's other options to replace him at home before. Like I said, Jarrod Bowen, possibly drop him down to a Smith Rowe or a Morgan Rogers to try and free up some money. So there's other alternatives there, but Luis Diaz is someone that I'm definitely keeping on my radar and definitely going to keep an eye on. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about some of the top players in each position, as I think game week 6 is going to be quite a big wildcard window for a lot of different people. So people are going to be looking at different players, different options to go from. So goalkeepers, we'll start off with them first. I think David Raya is by far number one. I know he's the most expensive and he is the premium goalkeeper, but I think on this year alone, I think he deserves to be there just for the fact that he plays for the Arsenal defence who can get clean sheets, but he's also making saves and pushing himself into bonus points as well. So for me, yeah, David Raya definitely up there. There's the likes of Verbruggen from Brighton, Henderson from Crystal Palace, Flecken from Brentford. Brentford have got decent fixtures, so I mean, if you wanted to get the sort of cheaper option, maybe you could go for a 4.5 Flecken. But I think for me personally, if I was on a wildcard in particular, I would definitely prioritise David Raya in there. Onto the defence, Gabriel and Saliba kind of go without saying they're going to be here, especially over the next 3 in short term. Arsenal have got very, very good fixtures. Trent is on here as well, obviously playing against Wolves, Crystal Palace coming up. So again, decent fixtures. Maybe not as good as the Arsenal ones, but decent. And he offers the attacking threat as we saw this week. Picked himself up an assist with the clean sheet. So Trent definitely for me is someone that if you can afford him, I personally would have him. The biggest thing for me, obviously, is trying to free up the money to get the Arsenal defenders. So unfortunately for me, Trent has to be that sacrifice. But if you are wildcarding and, maybe you can downgrade a midfielder or something like that, I personally would try and get both in, Trent and an Arsenal defender. So yeah, we've got Gabriel, Saliba and Trent. They're my 3 top defenders that I'd want to be bringing in this week if I was on a wildcard. Now onto the midfield, I think Brian Mbeumo kind of goes without saying. He's going to be their main man. He's going to be on penalties for them. And, he's just everything that Brentford do will probably go through him. So for me, especially with the fixture they've got coming up, I like him a lot. Now, I have put Luis Diaz on this list. Like I said, I'm not sure about him just because of the minutes, but there's no denying that the numbers he's putting up, the stats he's putting up, he is playing fantastically well. And I think he deserves his mention, he deserves his credit because he's outscoring Salah, Jota, Nunez, all these type of players who, especially Salah in particular in previous seasons in FPL has always been Liverpool's main man. And it seems that so far at the start of the season, that is Luis Diaz's role. So yeah, he's going to be on this list for me as well. And the final midfield I'm going to go for is maybe an outside chance. It obviously depends on whether or not he plays. So I'd say maybe wait another week. But that is Phil Foden. You know, he's back now. It seems to be like he's back from injury, back from his fitness levels are going up. He obviously come off the bench against Arsenal. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets himself into the starting lineup, and he's somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on, especially as Man City's fixtures from game week 7 really do swing for them in their favour. If I see that Foden's going to continue to start playing or going to start to finally get back into the team, then I think him at his price becomes very, very valuable to the game. And finally, my top strikers, obviously no dispute about who's number one. It is obviously going to be Erling Haaland. Newcastle away this week. Again, Newcastle are not the best defensively this season in particular, and the rest of his fixtures after this are just great. You probably want to have him captain pretty much for the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks. Dominic Solanke is in at number 2. Now, he's somebody that, you know, I think needed to get off the mark with that first goal. He got it, and I do expect him to push on. You know, Spurs create enough chances where Solanke should be converting more goals than he has done so far. So for me, yeah, 7.5 million, great price, and I do think that he's gonna start to heat up a little bit now. Now that he's got his first goal, it's almost like a weight off the shoulder. And I do think we'll start to see more goal contributions from him. And my outside pick on this, and it obviously does depend on whether he plays striker or not, is Kai Havertz. Obviously, Arsenal over the next 3, like I've touched on, have got great fixtures. Every time Havertz has played against, you know, sort of, I don't want to say a mediocre because I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone's teams, but every time he's played against maybe a low opposition team, he has scored this season. So for me, yeah, it depends on whether or not he's playing up front. If he's playing up front, fantastic. If he's not, then I would look to avoid him. But yeah, for me, he's going to creep on this list at number 3, just in case he does actually manage to start front for Arsenal. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I'm going to be back tomorrow with an FPL challenge video, and then later on in the week, either Thursday or Friday, I will be back with a final team selection video, just showing you guys what my team's looking like going into game week 6, and if I have or have not made the transfers at that period of time. So thank you guys once again so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.